Hey friends, welcome to Experience Weekly Data Talk, a show featuring data science leaders from around the world. This is episode number 103, and we had a chance to sit down and chat with Dr. Ted Wei. Ted talks with us about his academic journey, why he didn't leave school during the dot-com boom, even though there was a huge temptation to do so. He talks about his study habits in school, what kept him on track. He gives advice on how to choose your first data science job, and also talks about the importance of mentorship, building relationships with leaders and peers, and why having a growth mindset is key. He also shares a bunch of other great tips for those of us who are navigating our careers. Now, we only had an hour to chat, and this conversation literally flew by, so we didn't even get a chance to talk to him about his machine learning project. So we're going to schedule another chat in the future to get more into the nitty-gritty of the things he's doing around machine learning. But enough of me blabbering. Let's get to this conversation with Ted. I was like blown away at your academic background, and I wanted to start just want to go back to like your freshman year.
Yeah, I mean, when I started college, I had a lot of AP credit, and I think that was definitely really helpful to just kind of get a leg up on that path. And that was 20 years ago. So kind of aging myself here, around the dot-com boom, and so basically everyone and their brother was going into computer science, and so basically it was computer science, and then there's so much overlap with electrical engineering, and it was cool to kind of see the entire stack. I think in the computer science world we talk about stacks and stuff like that, but it was like the entire stack, like with electrical engineering, be able to go all the way down to the atomic level of, okay, here are the, here are the holes, and here are what the atoms are doing, and how all these form, transistors and gates, and how you build architecture and chips, and then here's the program that you can write on top of that. And so it was really cool to kind of see that, really truly end to end.
So you mentioned this is a period where, the dot-com boom was booming. So was your kind of aim okay, if I get my degrees in computer engineering, electrical engineering, I'll pretty much, obviously you could be set, you can go anywhere you want to go. So was your first idea let me get these degrees and then head off to a startup?
I think there was definitely that fervor going on. I've definitely had a lot of classmates who were being lured away to Silicon Valley. They were getting promises of, come join our company, you get the sports car. Those were the heydays at that time. But I had a lot of professors who basically said, look, don't quit school, finish your degree. And that was basically very, very wise advice, because 2 years later then we had the dot-com bust, so.
Yeah, so talk to the students right now who are, in really good programs at good schools, and maybe they're getting lured away. Maybe they're they're in their senior year and they're getting a really good offer. What would your advice to them be?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is, I think that the work will always be there. There will always be interesting things to do. But the time, the opportunity to be able to focus on studying is really now if you're a student. I know especially in data science today, it's pretty much the same thing. Data scientists are a rare breed, and to be lured away is definitely very tempting. But once you get into the work world, you're basically doing essentially what the company wants you to do, and you don't have the luxury of just being able to spend time and focus and study and learn and explore. And this is the time to do it. So I would say take the most of that opportunity right now, and at least stay in school. So yeah, probably feel like I'm talking to high schoolers and middle schoolers.
That's right. Did you have some mentors at that time who were kind of helping you with some of these decisions?
Yeah, I think we have definitely some of my friends who are in years above me. And both my parents have PhDs, and so definitely from their perspective, it's definitely important to do some grad school. Over the years, there's definitely a lot of back and forth where I said, well, maybe a master's is enough, and they're like, well, if you really want to understand something, you want to do a PhD. And I would definitely see my friends, driving around their cars and buying homes and stuff, and I'd be eating my ramen and stuff. But in the long run, I think it was a good decision for me. But I know it's different for everybody, and so I think it's whatever works out for each individual.
Yeah, well, I love your discipline, and I love that you were so focused on continuing with your education, making it a priority, and all the while, like seeing the dot-com boom, seeing some friends going off to great companies, some of them making great money, just starting out, getting the cars, getting nice places, and you're like, oh man, that is so tempting. Like you could have totally done that, but you were just like, no, I want to stick with my education.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to take a long-term view of things and looking
Yeah.
back. Looking back, always having the luxury of hindsight definitely is a benefit. In the data science community, having an advanced degree definitely is a plus, because there's a whole spectrum in data science. You could be a data science practitioner, you can do a lot of cool things, and there's amazing tools and ways that you can do data science today. But then, I think definitely having an advanced degree, when I speak, has a level of credibility that I think gets me into the door, where then I have opportunities to be able to have deeper conversations.
No doubt.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting too is that you got not one, but two master's degrees. I mean, just getting one master's degree is a lot of work, a lot of discipline, and you got two. Why was it important for you to get two master's degrees?
Yeah. I mean, I think the public story is, I have lots of interests. I think the private story is that my math is just really bad.
What?
So,
I don't think so.
math in the sense of like statistics. So basically, what happened was, in my senior year of college, the senior project was a signal processing course. And we got to work on a really, really cool project that was on speaker identification. So the idea was, you spoke into a microphone, and then it would identify who the speaker was, based on a set of pre-trained people. And as a senior in college, I was like, wow, this is super cool. And it was a signal processing course. And so, I went on to get a master's in signal processing. And as time went on, I started realizing that signal processing was essentially all math and all statistics. And it got to the point where I was just like, like a lot of people had a lot better math skills than I did. And my research at the time, I was really lucky. I got into a lab at the radiology department in the medical school. And their project was essentially what we call spell check for radiologists. So the idea of there's a ton of imagery out there in the medical radiology field. And so there's very few radiologists. So how can we apply, machine learning? How can we apply image processing to analyze those images and to be able to, essentially help radiologists in their diagnoses? And so that's what got me interested in biomedical engineering and applying engineering skills into the medical field. And so that's how I transferred over to the biomedical engineering department, and then went down that path.
Wow, that's fascinating. And this was how long ago was this? Like,
this was about 15-ish years ago. Yeah.
Because I feel like in the news just recently we're hearing about how AI is helping radiologists. So this is like this is during the early period.
Right. This was, and even before that, my advisor and her advisor before that. I mean, they were doing this stuff since like the 70s, and the 80s. Yeah. So and AI's kind of had its winters and peaks and stuff, and we're just now in a very exciting time. And I think it's just like starting out. I never would have thought, like when I was doing the project, it was deep neural networks were not the thing. And the idea was we should analyze these images. We should apply the traditional machine learning algorithms from the extracted features. And nobody liked neural networks, right? I mean, those were just black box things that nobody understood and nobody thought would be very good. But who would have thought? 15 years later, boom, here we are.
I think it's funny that you talk about not being good at math or statistics. Even though you're on all these high-level programs that require a lot of math, what for the engineer data scientist in school right now who's really struggling, like they're struggling with some of the math or the statistics parts, can you give them some encouragement because you felt that way?
Right. I mean, I definitely feel like it's one of, I'm sure, probably people feel the same way. maybe in grade school your math was really good, in middle school and high school, you were all, you were upper half of the class, and then you go to college, and all of a sudden, you're with a lot of amazing people, and it'll just keep on happening. I think imposter syndrome, the feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. I mean, I feel that, when I go to these conferences, or even at work, I'm surrounded by a bunch of brilliant people, and I think the thing that my encouragement would be that you have your own unique set of skills, and it really does take a lot of practice and grit. There's no shortcut around this. Doing the problem sets, doing those extra problem sets, finding support groups and study groups to do things together. My idea of studying was just sitting down by myself with a textbook, and that was not effective. But when I started working in a study group, and I would try to teach someone the concept, and they would try to teach me, then we found out where our areas of weakness were, and by trying to explain something to someone else, that helped me understand it more. But there's no getting around actually doing those problem sets, doing that extra work, trying things out. I mean, I think in our society, it's a very instantaneous, instant gratification society today. But I think the people who are going to get out ahead are the ones who put in that extra effort.
I love that you mentioned that you kind of changed your approach as you were like, you know what, me sitting down in a textbook in a library or a coffee shop, this is not working for me. Like, I'm not, like, whatever it is, like, I'm not learning as quickly as I could. And then you said that you joined a group, and that really changed things for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, and we see it at work all the time too, at Microsoft, where it's really about understanding what the constraints are and figuring out how to change things up, and kind of like this consistent, constant improvement mentality. Satya, our CEO, likes to talk about the growth mindset. The idea that we're not fixed by what we think. It's easy to think, oh, I'm not good at math, or I'll never be able to do this, and we have that narrative in ourselves, when in reality, there's people are limitless. It's amazing what people can do. Like even today, the stuff that our team does here at Microsoft is essentially we are co-designing the hardware and the software, right? So we're using FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays, and basically the idea here is, imagine you're trying to drive to work, and the traffic stinks, and you just have to follow the roads. And the way to get to work, you may make it faster by driving a little faster. You may try to take some shortcuts and try different routes, but you're constrained by the way the roads are laid out. And we get fixed by that. So instead of doing that, why not build your own roads, right? That's exactly what we did. Basically, we were trying to make our AI models run faster, and we were constrained by the available chips at the time. And instead of being constrained by the hardware and the chips, we said, you know what? We're just going to make our own. We're just going to write our own hardware and flash them onto FPGAs, and then and do that. So kind of, long circuitous.
I love that. I love, what a great example.
But basically, when it comes to studying, when it comes to up-leveling your skills, it's a constant reflection on, okay, what are my constraints? I'm sitting here with a textbook, and the feedback I'm getting back from my exams is not that good. How do I remove these constraints? How do I increase my degrees of freedom to be able to be more effective?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the example you just shared, and that takes a lot of creativity to be able to find out like these other avenues, like other ways of doing things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things in grad school is about trying to apply creativity, and that's why I'd also, now that we're talking about encouraging and stuff like that, it's like get out of the engineering mindset. There's so many other things to do. Like I love singing, but I stink at singing, but I still love singing. Go to museums and take a walk in the park and have some hobbies. I think all of these things just kind of help you break the mold of typical engineering mindset, where it's like, okay, I have these problems, I have these constraints, let me do something within these constraints. What I love about, I guess the artistic world, my wife studied piano, and so, she's not as she says I'm more rigid and stubborn, but we'll leave it at that. But the ability to be able to not be fixed by these constraints.
Well, I love that you carry that mission that your CEO about the growth mindset. Like you have applied that to your own life, just with the things you mentioned. Like you're just keeping yourself busy, trying new things, not being afraid of failure. Hey, you know what? I like singing, and you may not feel like you're great at singing, but you're like, this is something I want to practice. I want to get better at. What do you think has helped you become have that growth mindset? Like, what is it in you that has made you hungry and curious and constantly wanting to improve yourself, and also in these other areas where you're like, hey, that's okay. I'm not a great singer, but I'm still gonna apply myself here.
Maybe part of it is age. Over time you start realizing that maybe some things don't matter as much as you thought they would. I think having an environment where you feel safe to fail, in that sense, and maybe fail is not the best word, but maybe having an environment where it's safe to learn might be a better way of putting it.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know in school it's very difficult, to say okay, for this exam I'm just going to change up my entire routine, and I totally get that. If that means not doing very well in the exam, it has very, very serious ramifications. So I think it's kind of understanding the environment. It's like what are the risks, right? So basically understanding, okay, here's all the things that I could try. Here are the risks, and here are the potential upsides and downsides. And if it's going to be too risky, and I could go my normal way and get a decent score on my exam, or I could try something new and either get an amazing score or completely fail. Maybe in this context, it might be good to stay safe, but in other contexts where you might think like singing, in the past, I might be afraid of people thinking, and what they thought, but now, it doesn't really matter as much anymore. And I think over time you realize the things that I thought really mattered, especially around what other people thought about me, maybe aren't as big of a deal anymore. And I think that gives me more opportunity to experiment.
For those who are working at a company and maybe they have some people on their teams who aren't hungry, they don't have that growth mindset, and they're trying to encourage that other person on their team to let's be hungry, let's be more creative, let's be hungry. What would be your advice to that person who's like, I want to encourage this person?
Right. I think it's just really demonstrating results, and I think really just encouraging them to really yearn. And I remember this quote that I thought was really cool, where if you want to get someone to build a boat, don't force them to sit down with you and hack out the wood and try to build a boat and force them to do that, but develop a yearning for the sea. Develop a yearning for a love for exploration and stuff. And I think it's kind of something similar where, maybe if you're working with coworkers and they're just fine with just, doing what they need to do, but you just have this hunger and you want to do more, then my advice would be, especially in the data science realm, it's so easy to experiment and to iterate quickly, to be able to show some results that would appeal to the team and that that your coworker could get on board with. So for example, we work with a lot of customers on data science projects and AI projects, and it's not a 6-month project, which is great. Basically we go in and we say, hey, look, we have these tools. Take some of the data that you have, build up a very simple machine learning model, throw it on a dashboard. And then when their coworkers look at it, they say, whoa, you were able to predict this. Can we do this? And then the management looks at it and says, hey, what if we did this? And now all of a sudden you're generating a lot of excitement, that you're generating that energy. And I know I'm repeating a lot of this corporate stuff, but I think Microsoft really articulates it really well too, where we're really, our 3 things are really to create clarity, to generate energy, and to deliver results. But that generate energy part of it, you can do. When you say, hey, look, I'm doing this project, or maybe even the side project, and look at this cool thing. It's a tiny MVP, it's tiny minimal viable product, but people look at it and they're like, wow, that's great. What if you added this? And then the coworker says, hey, can I contribute too? Then I think you have a way of starting to build up on that momentum and getting people along with you on this exciting journey.
I love those three things you just mentioned, specifically the energy part, because that is really the kind of the part that requires you to, like, what are you bringing to the team? What are the ideas you're bringing to improve that project? And that's really the vital part that kind of keeps everyone going and keeps everybody excited. Like, that's a crucial part, but that takes a lot of, there isn't like, I don't know, there isn't like a math equation that this is what you do to generate energy. It's like, no, it's like, you have to like bring it. You have to like come in and be excited and like get everyone else, like you were saying, like get everyone else excited on it. So everyone's like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that?
Yeah. And it's really hard to fake, it's one of those things where, if you don't love what you're doing, then I mean, I would say, find something about it, like I totally understand that, not everyone is in jobs in which they may feel fulfilled, where they may feel that, they're able to, take advantage of all of their skills. And maybe part of it is, okay, can you find something in what you're doing to kind of overlap with your passions? And I think when you can tap into what you're really excited about, then I think that will catapult. Otherwise, you're just kind of, you're trying to slog it along and you're trying to generate the artificial energy, and it's just going to burn you out,
That's so true. I was talking to one of our leaders here about that, and he was saying that it's so important that employees and team members are sharing up like with their leaders. Like, hey, if you're not feeling passionate, you're like feeling worn out, whatever it is, burned out, like, it's so important to communicate that with the leader, so the leader can go, okay, let's adjust. Maybe we need to move you out of that spot over here where you can be more effective and also more passionate. Because sometimes people feel like, oh, I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid I might get laid off or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it's scary. I come from an Asian background, very traditional Asian background, where basically it's very hierarchical. And I feel the same way now, where it's like, wow, there are probably some scary conversations I should have with my managers that I'm not having, where of just really having that understanding of, these are the things that I think we should do, or these are the things that I'm passionate about, and really seeing your leadership team as allies, as people who want you to succeed. Because
that's right.
Right. And so it's definitely going to take some courage to be able to do that. And I totally understand. It could be really scary.
That's so true. And I think also, like, the sign of a good leader is a leader who is having those discussions openly. Like, they're having like they realize that they've built those relationships, that they know that, hey, my team can come to me if they're struggling. They know I have their best interest in mind. So if they're like not being challenged, or they're just like in a rut, like, please let me know, because I want to move you. Or maybe even the leader's so good that they identify it before it even has to say anything. They're like, hey, I noticed you're not really thriving on this project like you usually are. Is this not interesting to you? Should I move you over to this other thing?
Absolutely. And the nice thing about Microsoft is that there's so many different teams, and sometimes the different organizations feel like they're different companies almost. And so, but then, within every org, there are different teams, and every manager has their own management style. I've been lucky. I've had some really great managers, and I've also had some managers that, where just things didn't work. And that's just the reality of it. And if you have the luxury of being able to move around, that might be an option. If not, then it's really just, working with them to really identify, what's success for both of you, right? Because
that's
you're here to help the manager and the organization succeed, and it's in their best interest to foster that, so that you could, live up to your best potential. But it should be also something that you really enjoy doing, and that you could bring value to the company.
What advice do you have for those who are just finishing school, getting their very first job, and they're choosing a company, and essentially they're choosing the leader and the team they're going to be joining? And I feel like the very first job is really, really important, because it's kind of setting standards for you. It's setting like, this is how things work. And this can either give you a really good example of what leadership looks like and what growth looks like. It can also be a terrible example of,
Yes.
and it can like hurt you and like, oh, this is the way it is.
Right,
And
right.
it's kind of like that first impression. So like, what would be your advice to like, for someone who's choosing their very first job,
Mm-hmm.
that very first team to work on, things they should be looking for before they say, yes, I want to work for that person on that team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually just thinking about this where in just the companies I interviewed with before I started working, and I think it's I would say go and leverage your network, and try to find out as much about these companies as you can. So, if you're in school, the people who were in the grade above you, who just graduated and they're in their first jobs, hit them up. Like just like we're doing right now, it's video chat. Back in the day when I was in college, it was but like it's so easy now to be able to have a conversation and really just try to get the lowdown of what things are really like. I think back and just realize just how naive I was in terms of not really knowing,
None of us did. Yeah.
A lot of it was basically, okay, who came to the career fair, who actually, gave me an interview, and basically I'll just take the first job that I'm offered.
Right. Because you feel like I'm lucky to get a job offer. I'll take whatever comes my way.
Right. And I think, you just realize that, you have options, right? It's companies are looking for you, but you also have the opportunity to look at different companies. So ask anybody, like, LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, figure out who's working at companies you're interested in, chat with them, get an understanding of what's going on, and then try to talk to as many people as possible, basically, because different people have different experiences, right? Somebody may work at a big company you admire, and they're just on a team that's not working out for them, and they would have a really bad experience. But 3 other people at the company would say this is totally amazing.
That's right.
Try to get as much input as possible. And I totally get, when you're in your last year of school, you're trying to graduate, you're trying to do all your senior projects, or you're trying to write that dissertation, and you're like, I have no time for this. But it's one of those things where, like anything else in life, if it's important, you just really have to prioritize, and maybe that may mean saying no to other things, but it's going to definitely help you in the long run, because like you said, that first job, I mean, it's not going to, set everything for life, but it's definitely going to be pretty crucial in terms of giving you an idea of what the working world is like.
I'm curious about, as you have navigated to different teams and worked on different projects, what have been some signals to you of a great leader?
Yeah, I think thinking back to just some of the managers that I had, and just what comes to mind would be things like caring about the people, and that comes first, I think, at the end of the day, because no matter how fun and interesting the technology is, if life is just a constant death march, it's not going to be fun.
That's so true.
And so like my current manager, what I really love about her is, she really cares about what's going on in our lives, and if I want to take some time off because my daughter has a day off from school, then she's totally fine with it, because she trusts me that I'll make it up, and that I trust her that it's not going to be bad for my career, basically.
Right.
So caring about people. The second one is just having that vision of where they want to take the team. Like being able to articulate a really strong, compelling vision, and how that aligns with the company's overall objectives, because you want to go in the same direction as the company, and how that aligns with the industry objectives and kind of what's going on out there. I think if they can articulate that and say, hey, look, we have the opportunity to build some amazing, cool stuff, and this is the kind of impact that we have the opportunity to make, and you get to work with a lot of people who end up becoming your friends. I think that's kind of like a good combination there.
No, I like that. I think those are really, really important factors, especially the caring part. Like the caring, like when you have somebody who cares for you, That means that they had your best interest in mind.
Right.
You feel like you can go to them when there's a problem, or maybe somebody at work that you're working with and there's a challenging situation going on. Like, you have to have that care. Otherwise, it's harder to sometimes to trust that person.
Yeah, and it's a care from the management, care from the company. I mean, I joined Microsoft about in 2008, back when Microsoft was still kind of getting out of the evil empire era. And so my engineering advisor was a hardcore Linux guy, and essentially me joining Microsoft was like kind of being the black sheep of that. So,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like. But as a Taiwanese citizen, I also had to do military service, and so I worked for Microsoft for 2 years, and I was able to take a leave of absence.
Wow.
Yeah, took a leave of absence, and basically when I came back, my manager basically had a job waiting for me when I came back,
Awesome.
and so basically, I really felt taken care of. That the company has policies like these so that, I could fulfill my obligations without worrying about, oh my gosh, after military service, what was I going to do? And so I think just kind of from a corporate policy perspective, all the way down to the, individual relationships that you have, I think all make a huge difference.
Well, I love that you served in the military, and I'm wondering, that had to be very difficult because you went through school, you're in your career, you're thriving, you're enjoying things, and now you're moving into into the military world. Do you think that part of your life, did that serve you well coming back in?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's, you think about it. A lot of people think that, doing the mandatory military service is a big waste of time. And I think like anything else in life, you just have to figure out like how do you make the most out of it. And I know it sounds like, a lot of these like self-help books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was really lucky having the PhD. I was able to do the what they call the alternative military service, and so and then I applied for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so this was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so the overall work was pretty mundane. It was a lot of paperwork, but basically it was just trying to process tax-free imports and exports for all the diplomats in Taiwan. But because we were in the protocol section, our team also did a lot of the state visits. So when a foreign president would come to Taiwan with Taiwan's president, then we would be able to organize those state visits. And because I wanted to be diligent, I wanted to do a good job. Even though it was like boring paperwork. So they selected me to be the microphone bearer.
Wow, that's awesome.
Stand behind Taiwan's president, and okay, it's Taiwan's president's turn to speak. I would carry out the podium in front of him, and
oh my gosh,
and then I would carry it back, and that was like my little role. But I was like, hey,
that is so cool.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where I think if people can't trust you in the small things, they can't trust you in the big things, and so there are definitely people at military service who, basically thought it was a waste of time. They just wanted to play video games all day, and the work that they had to do, they were like, oh, this is so below me, I'm not going to do it. But I think I was just like, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm like, I have no other choice. Good job, and I think then you get recognized for that, and then you have other opportunities. I think sometimes we get it backwards, where we're like, I feel entitled to have these great opportunities. Give them to me first, and then I'll show up. Whereas, hey, I think we should really prove ourselves first with like the mundane, boring stuff, and then more opportunities will come. And I make it sound like I'm this amazing person, but I'm not, because there's times when I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like when you're going through like boot camp, and all your superiors are like, oh, this is how you eat a banana. You have to peel it. That's exposed, and you can't do that. And if you don't eat a banana correctly, then you have to do like 50 push-ups, right?
Well, I love that you just took that same that same discipline that you had in school and that growth mindset from where you were at Microsoft, and you just applied it to, hey, you know what? I got to do this thing, this service. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to work really, really hard. I'm going to be a very good military member. And because I just love that, because it's like you're just taking your same attitude and discipline and just applying it into a new space, even though you're like, maybe you didn't want to do it, but you're like, you know what? I'm going all in. I'm gonna be the best at what I can do here.
Yeah, and I was lucky. You know, I had some great high school teachers who really fostered that, and my parents, and just like my friends at church and stuff. And I think it's really the kind of like the people around you who you surround yourself with. Where I see people who are older than me, who've gone before me, and just see their examples, and really, the people who I say, I want to aspire to be like that. Then it's not all me. I think it's just being able to see a lot of the people I've been lucky to be around.
I also think it's also interesting that not many of us have this like kind of year. You were in the service for a year and a half?
For about a year and a half, yeah.
Year and a half. I mean, having that kind of year and a half break, you're like in a career, doing well, you're thriving, and now you have this year and a half, like not really, well, a break from your main career, doing something entirely different. Were you thinking at this point, like, okay, this is a period where I can now make an adjustment. I can adjust my career. I could do something entirely different when I come back.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that, but I think part of it was, I think it was good to kind of take a break from things, and just, I think part of it was realizing that maybe some things weren't as important as I thought. Like when I was basically 2 years into Microsoft. At the time I was working on volume activation in Microsoft Office, basically, product keys and, providing a lot of support for people who were trying to make sure that, they were able to activate Office correctly. And, I was involved in a lot of forums and stuff like that. And I was feeling like, man, it's like, I'm an important person. Oh no, if I leave Microsoft, I don't know what's going to happen to the team. And then it turned out everything was fine, And I'm realizing, oh, I'm like, I can contribute, but, like the company will move on, right? I think you kind of realize these things. It's like, to the extent in which I can contribute, I will be able to do that. But it's not like you kind of are more humbled by just kind of where you fit into the bigger picture. And
that's funny because I picture you're already super humble, so it's funny that you're even more humbled. That is so funny. So you had during this time, you really have this year and a half period where you're in the military, you're going all in, you're getting these awesome opportunities. You're literally on the world stage, right? Literally. And then as your period with the military is ending, are you already at this point talking with the teams at Microsoft, like already finding like I'm coming back?
Yeah.
And you're kind of are you thinking about joining the same team at this point, or are you thinking about moving into doing something else?
Yeah, at that time, I think I was just more interested in getting out of military service and back into Microsoft, and so going back to my old team. So I think it was more of a time of not so much, I wasn't as proactive or taking initiative as like, oh, what are things out there? I think it was more at that time. It was just more of like, hey, I just want to get back in and then go from there. Yeah.
And so you mentioned that. So you went back working with Microsoft Office. Were you okay? And what was this was
about 2011, 2012.
Okay. Okay. And so at what point did you kind of make that shift into AI, machine learning? 'Cause I feel like a lot of this terminology has become really, really popular today.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone knows AI now, but like you've kind of seen like the ups and the downs in that world. And so you're working Microsoft Office. Right. And at what point were you like really intrigued on, I really want to start joining like a AI machine learning team?
Yeah, like in Office, I have the machine learning background, and part of some of the things that we wanted to do were things like alerting, real time alerting. So if anything was happening, the part of Office I was in at that time was also building the service platform for Office. So if you were to go to, if you were using Microsoft Word on your desktop at work, and you're on, page 7 of your document, and you save it, and you go home and you open up Microsoft Word on your laptop, it would open up to page 7, and you would see all of your recently used files, synced, right? Today we just take it for granted, but back then that was like amazingly new, and that was built on the platform that our team built on Azure. And so part of it was, okay, we're getting into this services world. How do we do some of these real-time alerting? How do we start adding machine learning into all of that? But it was also a time in which I saw the Azure machine learning team starting to spin up. And the way that typically in Microsoft, if you wanted to move to a different position, it's a lot easier now. You could just go reach out to the hiring manager and have a chat, and then go into the interview loop. But what the team did was they had basically like a hackathon, essentially a big Kaggle competition, where you formed teams, and you got this data science project, and you were based on how well you did, with that data set. And so some of the folks I was working with in Office, they're amazing programmers. They have some data science background. So we formed a team. We got in the top 3, and we got a dinner with the other winners, with a
That's
CDC,
cool.
and with the other leadership. And that was kind of the ticket.
That's awesome.
And so kind of realizing, like, at the time, as a program manager, I wasn't programming every day. So my programming skills have definitely gotten a lot more rusty. And so realizing that, hey, this guy has amazing programming skills, and what are the different skills that we could bring together in a team, and what are the ways in which we could do something. And so that was just a great opportunity as they were starting up the Azure machine learning team to kind of get in,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool you got in so early. So making those like career changes is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I just from talking to you, I know you're like super thoughtful, and you're thinking about everything from like your career to also the team you're on, and also like it's hard to leave a good boss and a good, it's really hard to do that.
Right.
So talk us through like your thinking during this time, because a lot of people maybe feel like, oh, I want to join this other team, but I love my boss, I love my team, and I'm not sure if I should do it or not.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, and I try to be thoughtful, but I think in kind of seeing kind of I think of it as kind of like a Venn diagram with 3 circles. There's the stuff you're passionate about, like what do you love, and my background is in AI and machine learning, and here's this new AI team, so I'm passionate about that. The second part is, what am I good at? Kind of going back to the singing, right? I love singing, but I'm not good at singing, so probably won't have a good career in singing. So it's like, what's the intersection of what I love and what I'm good at? And then the third circle is really, what's valuable to the team and to the company. And so I think, it was basically, I think that was when AI and machine learning is starting to get a little bit more popular, and people are starting to think about realizing the importance of it. And Microsoft definitely, was at a position where we knew that Google and Facebook and Amazon were already doing these things, and I think we were realizing, there's been a lot of AI already done at Microsoft Research. AI is being infused into a lot of the stuff we do. But I think as a company, we're starting to realize, we really need to go all in on machine learning and AI. And I think just kind of seeing that, the opportunities. And so leaving a team is definitely very hard. But I think it's kind of realizing, okay, do I take this risk? Is this going to, is this something where I can make a contribution, where I can bring value to the team? But it's definitely scary. Like even right now, I'm sure a lot of people out there are being constantly called by recruiters too, right? And there's always the question of, okay, I love Microsoft, but if these recruiters, it's kind of the same idea, right?
Right.
Too. And so, I love it here, so I'm still gonna stay. But I think it's like the same, it's like, well, do I leave? Do I stay? But I think it's definitely gotten a lot easier in the industry, where you can try out a lot of different things and even come back if you want to.
That's right. That's right. No, that's really good. That's really good advice, because that's a struggle for a lot of people as they're in their current jobs and getting opportunities to go elsewhere, or they see something opening up at their own company,
Right.
and kind of navigating the politics there and trying to figure out, okay, if I tell my boss I'm kind of interested in this position, is that going to make things awkward if I don't get the position? Right.
And I think this is where the network kind of comes back into play, where I'm sure somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody on that team, and they will give you the lowdown on what's the manager like, what is it like, and what is it really. I think machine learning AI is so hyped up nowadays, and I think you might be thinking, oh, this is an amazing job, and it's like, I hear so much about data science, I'm going to do all this, and then you end up on the team, and it's like, 90% of your time is trying to, run these queries to try to clean your data, and you're like, what? What did I say? So it's good to get the lowdown from people who are actually there, and what it's really like.
I love, you mentioned network a couple of times. I want to ask you about that, because I think networking is like super important, and I think sometimes it gets like a bad rap.
Yeah.
Because you think about like in a sales context, or like just build your network. Your network is your net worth.
Right.
I like to think of it in terms of relationships. Like, how are you building good relationships within the organization and with people that you can learn from?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious about how you think about that relationship building at Microsoft, and also externally too.
Right. No, I think I really like the way that you're putting it, because at the end of the day, it is a relationship, right? It's not, I think people can sniff out if you're trying to get something from them, and I think that's not the case. It's like, if I want to approach someone, or if I want to get to know someone, it's not because I want to get something out of them, and I think, to your point, what's a relationship? A relationship is just basically, it's just that people connection. It's a connection of shared interests, of being able to understand kind of what's going on with their lives and what they're doing, and seeing if there are ways in which you can benefit them. Sometimes it's about like, you're doing something and you're like, oh yeah, I bumped into this person and they were doing this. Well, let me send this to them. And then, it's a very organic thing. There'll definitely be times in which it is a networking event, and you are there to meet people and to do that, which is totally fine too. But like you said, I think it's the relationships you build that I think will kind of be that strong community that you could fall back onto when there are times in which you might want to learn more about what's going on. Yeah.
What would be your advice for those who are, maybe they feel more shy, and they just feel like, oh, I'm not really good at networking. Yeah. I'm not even sure what to say. I'm not even sure where to meet people. I kind of like, I go to my desk, I work really hard, and then I go home. And I'm not even sure, like, it would be weird if I just walk up to someone randomly eating lunch.
Right. Yeah. That's a really great question. I mean, I guess I would say, try to take the focus off of you and put it onto others. I think, like I'm shy, my wife is shy. I mean, and so I think sometimes we find ourselves, we end up focusing too much on ourselves, where it's like, oh, what's that person going to think about me? Or what's this going to do? Or it's all about me. Maybe, I would challenge this person.
Yeah.
In a person, right? It's like, if I go up to someone, my mindset is, well, how can I help you, right? I want to learn something about you, or, is there a way in which I can bring value into what you're trying to do today? And I think when I take the focus off myself and place it onto helping others, some of it goes away. And that doesn't mean you're going to be this, extrovert overnight. But I think that kind of mentality has really helped me kind of get over the shyness of approaching people. I'm
curious about mentorship, and if you have sought out mentors what that kind of looked like when you maybe it's an informal mentorship, but
Right.
like how that kind of worked for you. Because I've been chatting with a couple people here, and we were talking about, I've had a lot of great mentors. A lot of them have been informal, just people who I've like looked up to and I've had coffee with, and they've been amazing people for who have helped me. And I'm kind of curious, in your story, how have you kind of found those people who have like helped build you up?
Yeah, like I've definitely realized there were kind of times in my career where I was in the, okay, I'm just going to sit down at my desk and do my job and not think about this mentorship thing. And I've seen I've suffered for it essentially. Where basically you lose out kind of on a larger perspective. You miss out on maybe different opportunities, and kind of maybe the team goes in one direction and you're trying to go and you're going in a different direction, and then things don't work out because I was I had so much tunnel vision, and I've definitely seen that in my own career. I think
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
same way. Yep.
Yeah, we all fall into that. Because it's kind of like, well, I'm going to do my job, and I don't, I think everything's going well, but in reality, having that extra perspective really helps. But it's people who are my previous managers, people who I've had the opportunity to work with over time, people from other teams who are in positions of leadership, who I've been able to do work for their team, and it's just becoming, it becomes a lot more easier to be able to say, hey, do you have 30 minutes to grab some coffee? And I think just having that coffee, being prepared for the conversation, and just using them as a sounding board, I think has been most effective, right? So I think, they're super busy. To go into a conversation and say, hey, tell me what to do, is not going to be very effective, but I think to basically say, here are the things that are going on, here are the things that I think I should do, what's your take on it? And then I think that becomes very, very productive. But I found that to be effective, and also just having these casual conversations rather than, oh, will you be my mentor?
Yeah, right.
We need to have that DTR, define the relationship, conversation. Let's just have a conversation, and I love to learn from you, and give you perspectives on what's going on here, which they benefit from, because so yeah.
Have you found through the networking, through building these really good relationships, have you found that to be helpful, not only just with your career choices and things you've done, but also with getting projects done in a very big organization?
Yeah, absolutely. You've probably seen that cartoon of Microsoft of all the different silos and people pointing at each other. That was then. Now it's a lot better. Yeah. No more guns, but definitely no silos. Be able to build that relationship, to work with the other teams, and as much as like video conferencing and calls make it more convenient, the human relationship still makes a huge difference. If we're on Redmond main campus, but we work with people in downtown Bellevue, which is basically a 20-minute drive, 15-minute drive away. But I'll still go down there and meet with people just because of that relationship, even though it's more convenient just to have a call. So I think that's definitely important. And the team that I'm on right now is a team I collaborated with for a long time. So I was on the AI platform for about 4.5 years, building out the AI platform. And part of it was, how do we accelerate AI? How do we make AI run faster? And I was working with a team in Microsoft Research that's now in Azure for about 1.5 years on the project. And over that time, I was like, oh my gosh, the stuff you're doing is like super amazing, cool. And now I'm on this team, so these are just all the opportunities as you start getting to know people and getting to know what people are doing. You start seeing, wow, these are some really, really cool things that I want to be part of too.
What do you look for when you're bringing someone onto your team? Like, what's important to you? Skill sets, personalities?
Yeah. I think part of it is, I think all of that. together. Part of it is, as part of the interview process, what I'm asking myself is, do I want to work with this person, right? As I'm interacting with this person, as we're solving a problem together on the whiteboard, as we're discussing, in the context of an interview, as we're trying to problem solve together, can I envision myself doing this every day, for many years?
For hours.
hours every day. Are they somebody that I want to be around? And are they somebody that I could think would be a good fit for the team? So there's definitely that aspect. But then there's also the skill set aspect. Are they competent in terms of the skills that they bring? Because no matter how friendly you are, no matter how great you get along with other people, at the end of the day, we have a job that we need to do, and so the skills are going to be super important too. And I think also just kind of going back to that growth mindset. There are people who come in and they're just like, well, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. But then, what does a realistic growth mindset look like? It's not, head in the clouds, doing the impossible, but really just, I think one manager said, like head in the clouds, but feet on the ground, right? You kind of have aspirations, you have these challenges that you want to look and go after, but you have a firmly rooted sense of reality and what's really possible too.
Awesome. Well, I can't believe, but we're already up on our hour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so funny because I want to do another hour conversation with you to talk about machine learning products you've worked on. So we definitely have to have you back. Thank you.
It's been such a great time chatting with you. I didn't realize, time was great.
For those who want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to follow you online?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so just Ted Wei, or Twitter, Ted Winway. So feel free to connect with me there. Be more than happy to chat and just talk.
Awesome. We're going to set up an Experian blog post with the video of today's conversation, the full podcast, and some other notes. And we'll also link to your Twitter account and LinkedIn profile. And the short URL for that will be ex.pn/TedWei. Again, that's ex.pn/TedWei. Or, of course, you can always just go directly to LinkedIn and type in Ted Wei, and you'll find them there at Microsoft. Ted, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Data Talk podcast. I don't know about you, but I really, really enjoyed learning from Ted in this episode. I found him just super, super smart, wise, and extremely humble. What a blast. What a pleasure to be able to chat with him. If you found the show helpful, please share this with your friends. And if you do share it online, use the Data Talk hashtag so I can find it. And also just know that I'm always looking for recommendations. So if you have suggestions for topics or guests you'd like to hear from on the show, please reach out to me. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at the Experian Data Lab Twitter handle, or you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. My name is Mike Delgado. And also you can email me. My email address is michael.delgado@experian.com.